I think if you talk about traditional linear TV planning, that's been around for 50 plus years. So the thing about it is it's quite efficient. It actually really works quite well. And it's bought of reach and frequency. And the currency is GRPs, and Nielsen is the primary player in the market, right? So then you have other players that are coming slowly but surely, like Comscore, whose DNA is more focused on digital. So what's interesting is when you talk about TV dollars moving online, the reality of the marketplace right now is there's very few sources in terms of actually premium video content where TV dollars can actually go. So there's that. So outside of the Hulus of the world and then the ABC, CBS, NBC.coms, it's very hard to find apples to apples in terms of if you have to move some of the TV money, where would it go? So you have a lot of the publishers like Yahoo and AOL who have been trying and focusing a lot in the past few years on original content. I mean, having said that, they've had limited success because the key, again, is if you're a TV buyer, you would want options, you would want scale, because TV offers you that, right? If you have folks like Yahoo and AOL investing in 2 or 3 or 4 programs, it's not really giving a TV buyer scale. So for them to effectively move some of the money from one channel to another, they would need scale. And then outside of that comes actual planning, what you were talking about, right? That's where we specifically talk about how do you talk beyond just reach and frequency. So to some degree, there's been some conversations and players in the market like Simul Media, right? Focusing on addressability, focusing on the long tail. So there is that in the marketplace, but in terms of actual, I'd say, penetration and uptake, it's probably minuscule at best right now. We definitely see it moving in that direction slowly but surely because at Razorfish, our premise has always been one quickly needs to move away from the interruptive advertising model to the non-interruptive advertising model. What that means is actually providing context and value to the consumer powered via data. And that's something that online actually allows you to do. Now it's a question of actually getting access to not only the data, but the inventory, which is actually controlled by the MSAs at the end of the day, right? So it's a chicken and egg thing because in a way they would want to protect the unbundling, because with digital mindset and data, we would be focusing on unbundling, right? So that's not in an MSA's best interest, obviously. So there's that in terms of at what point do the MSAs start to play ball and give us access to inventory? It's all really inventory, right? Right now, I think you have roughly about maybe 20 or 30 million households between Dish and DirecTV that give you access to set-top box data. Outside of that, you're talking about 100 million households, right? So we have a long way to go. But I think it's in its infancy, but players who actually are sort of forward-looking and think about it more and start playing with the extended data sets that even a set-top box data offers and starts leveraging those along with offline data, you will start to see traction.
And we're getting ready to go to Mexico in a couple of weeks,
yes.
And a lot going on. What's sort of the big topics that you would see, that your clients want to know about? Sure. That's going to be discussed in the industry? What do you think some of those will be?
So a couple of key things. One is, I'm sure I think last year big data was all the rage, right? So I think data is still important, but the difference is it's not about data by itself. It's really about data storytelling. So the ability to extract relevant key points and make them actionable. That is going to be very important, number one. Number two is, again, as I briefly touched upon earlier, context and personalization. Again, that's not new at all. But what's new is how, as a marketeer and as the agency, we're addressing that. By that I mean, given the emergence of cross-channel consumption across the board, given the cookieless environment with mobile that we are in right now, how does one really focus on coming up with a coherent story in terms of delivering that optimal experience whereby the consumer feels connected across all devices? That's, again, going to be very important as far as cross-channel consumption because that's here to stay, right? I'd say another, again, no surprise is when you talk about social, nothing new about it. But what's new, again, is the ability to use data to start to tell stories. So both Facebook and Twitter have taken big steps in that direction, and we actually have great partnerships with both these companies. We're really focusing on using data and first-party data from our clients to tell stories that resonate with our clients, and then use that because in our sort of premise, again, it's really the strong influencers and your friends and family that influence your buying decisions as opposed to paid advertising, right? So a big focus almost has been on using paid to leverage the owned and the earned. And how do we go about doing that in a story that tells and focuses on a relevant consumer experience as opposed to simply just advertising?